Welcome to Pass It On. This podcast is organized by the International Humanity Foundation, IHF, where we dive into inspiring stories of individuals dedicated to passing on kindness and hope. I'm your host, Darice, and in each episode, we'll explore the journeys of volunteers from all around the globe who have joined IHF. Hi everyone, welcome back to another episode of Pass It On. I'm so excited to be here. I'm Darice as always, and today we have someone amazing, someone kind, someone exceptional joining us. His name is Amiel. I personally know him as the lead in Passwords, but he is here, so he's going to introduce himself to us. So, Amiel, can you please introduce yourself and share and tell us your role within IHF?
Hi, Darice. Thank you for having me here. But first, let me just correct. I am not the lead in Passwords. I'm just a team member. Kylie is the lead. I am currently the lead of the GLDs, just making sure everybody is okay and getting the training they need. If there are any issues, any problems, that's what I'm involved in. And if there are any issues and challenges that they want to voice, that's what I deal with. And the reason I got this role is because I was an IHF volunteer before at Center in Kenya, and then also for a short time in Medan.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you so much for being here with us today. So let's start with this. Since you've mentioned Kenya, so I think that would be the first question. What were you said you were at home volunteer in Kenya. So tell us what some of the biggest surprises you encountered are and the most significant lessons you took away from that experience as a GLD there.
That's such a broad question. So I think surprise-wise, it was a pleasant surprise for me to come and find that Kenya, Nakuru, where we were, was pretty much like South Africa. So there wasn't so much of a culture shock for me. And things that were different were things that I had already experienced. So it felt like being at home, away from home. And that was thoroughly enjoyed. Of course, the language differences posed a bit of a challenge, but of course, I enjoy language. So even though I never managed to learn the language at the time, it's something that I started picking up where I had left. And yeah, so but that was awesome. Um, the working with different people from different cultures, I think that was a big lesson because we all have different work ethics. We all have different work mindsets and expectations. And being part of the group where we all come together for one purpose, which is for the benefit of the children who were at the time living at the center, as well as the youth who were going to university, but staying off the site, but also being fed, if I can put it that way, as in financially supported, and just in general being part of the whole IHF home. That was an exhilarating experience. Actually, I enjoyed that.
Okay, thank you so much. Still on Kenya. As Carol mentioned, some tough times you faced over there, particularly regarding challenges like corruption. How did you navigate those difficulties, and what did you learn about the importance of loving without needing complete trust?
Yeah, so for me, it was very challenging. I think it was at the time one of the most challenging things I'd faced in my entire existence. Here I was from South Africa in a country that I had grown to love so much, and I'm hearing different things from different sides, and I don't have information. And what centered me was then having to ask myself, what is my purpose here? Why am I here? And my answer was for the children and for the youth. That's who I'm supposed to benefit. That's who I've come here for. And so when all the politicking, if I can call it that, was happening and going around, my focus was what is good for the children? What is the outcome that I want? And the outcome that I wanted was for the children to continue benefiting um, from being at IHF and experiencing minimal, if any, of what was going on around them in terms of the turmoil with the adults. And not having a full facts, I think, was also part of the benefit because I could then engage everyone openly and honestly, asking questions to try and understand where I could. And I don't know. I just always believe, and well, let me put it this way: I always try to believe that all of us act from a point of believing that we are doing good or something for the good. And sometimes that's misdirected, and sometimes it's got bad consequences to it. And yet, if I believe that what the person is doing in their mind, even if I can't see it, they believe they're doing it for the good, how can how can I lose love over that? So it became important for me to try and find the truth because yeah, I was beginning to almost everybody around me, and yet I could not stop loving, because if I stop loving, then I stop being who I am. And at the same time, remembering what my focus is and focusing on that, I want what is good for the children. And so staying focused on that also helped me to remember to always love, always look for ways to make things come out for the good for those who I am here for.
Okay. That's really, really interesting. Um, this so I'm going to um Kenya in like 2 months' time. So I'd really need some tips or something. So as you've been there, like can you tell me how it felt like, how Kenya is, how the center is? Was it exciting? What are the things I need to um watch out for? What are the things that would interest me, excite me, and what are the things that I need to prepare mentally or however ahead of? Don't know if you understand the question. I can rephrase it.
Um, so Nakuru, when I was there, was still a town, and Nakuru now is a city. So I was there 2018, 2019. There have been 5 years in between. So I don't know how many changes have happened to the place since then. But my experience of, let's start with the center, was just love in terms of the children, the other volunteers that I encountered and worked with. Um, of course, there were challenges. There were times we didn't see eye to eye. There were times where I remember I had to go back and apologize. I didn't handle that so well. I'm sorry, but that's human. That's just a human aspect of, if you're going to be with other people and you're going to own your truth and who you are and what you believe in, there are always going to be cases where you have disagreements, and some of them are just like, okay, fine, disagreement, look over, and some of them are like, no, 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 this is a point that I believe I should stand for. We had lots of activities. I mean, um, there were times, I mean, because we worked on shifts, and there were many of us, and so we could, juggle things a bit where we had different shifts. Um, the shift that I hated were waking up in the morning for breakfast. Some of the children left at 5 o'clock, which means that by 4 o'clock we had to be down there if you're doing the morning shift. Help make the tea and getting breakfast ready, and then having to try and find ways to make things work for you as a person so that things can just be easier. And then greeting all the children though in the morning before they left, that was a joy. That was amazing. That was just like, oh yeah, this is why I'm here. Seeing them out, making sure they dressed accordingly, everyone is all set, and seeing them off. And then during the day, we again also had shifts where we always had somebody always present and able to welcome visitors or anybody that came up during the day. And we would use that time as well to just do our own online work and wait while we wait for the children to return. And sometimes it would be like, okay, fine, now you have to go into town to do some things like pay the electricity, which fortunately now they're doing via the app and things like that. And then the children returned from about 2 o'clock, starting with the younger children, and then the older children, of course, coming later, the high school children, welcoming all of those back, and just being personal with them and checking how was your day, is there anything you want to talk about, tell me about your experiences, being one-on-one with the children up until the time when we had dinner at about 6, and then after that we had prep time, which was time for them to do their homework, do their studies, and we had to help them with that as well. And no, it's not because we knew everything. I mean, there's an amazing thing called YouTube where it's like, okay, fine, I don't know, but hey, somebody on YouTube knows about it. Does that help you? Let's find somebody else, and it was, yeah, it was awesome. Just the interactions between everybody, with the children, with each other, and then the area around. Oh, and then the weekends we use that to have fun with the children, whether it be games, movie nights, and things like that. Which is so that there was a fun element and a fun factor and a fun interaction. So it wasn't always just like serious. Okay, have you done your schoolwork? Are you doing your schoolwork? Kind of thing. Um, then the people around were just absolutely amazing, so super friendly, so welcoming, always interested, always smiling, and they just made you feel like home. They just made you feel like everything's gonna be all right. That we could speak with them when we needed to, and made relationships with the businesses around, so that we had understandings with them. It was just like, yeah, it was incredible. And it was just an amazing place to be in. And at the time, we were just exactly on the border between the city itself and the rural area, and the street before us is what divided the more farm area from the urban area. And so we had the best of both worlds, like the most amazing sunrises that you could see in the morning when you did breakfast at that time. So yeah, I think it's an amazing place to be. When it comes to working with other people, I always use the same rule. You always go in with trust, and you always read the person's words versus the person's actions, and they always need to align. If they don't align, then you ask, how come this is not aligning? Please help me make sense of it. I know the natural instinct is to just jump into conclusions of distrust, but sometimes it's nothing like that at all. And so it's always good to always be aware, always check, but also always be open to, maybe there's more. Maybe there's something I'm not seeing. Maybe there's something I'm not I'm not aware of. And for me, that's just a rule in life. It's not just with IHF or the Kenya Center, that's just something that I think is wise in life.
Okay, thank you so much. I would do well to write them down and keep them close to my heart. Um, what advice? I'm sorry that we're just really hammering on advice, but I know you are really, really wise. So I want to learn, and as well our listeners and the volunteers in IHF as well. So the next question is also geared towards that. What words of advice would you offer to those working at center? Can be in Kenya, Indonesia, Thailand, anyone. What words of advice would you offer to them? How can they stay resilient and focused on the greater good amidst so many things happening in the world, trials, everything that's going on? How do they stay focused?
So can I just start by correcting you? I am not wise at all, please. um,
But you are. It's a compliment, so I think you should take that. But whatever you say.
thank you, thank you, thank you that you see me as being wise. Um, I'm gonna, um, I'm gonna, I'm gonna relate a story to bring this point across. Um, During those difficult times in Kenya, it got to a time. So what happened is everything almost happened at the same time to a point where I was left almost alone with the responsibility of all the children and all the things that needed to be done. And I was finding it so hard. And it wasn't by design, it was just like some of the people's time had come to an end and they had to go back to their homes. One of the ladies was on maternity leave. It was, but everything happened at the same time. And I ended up having to run for legal things at the same time, do the administrative things at the same time. And at that also during that period, I was like, I've got an English class for the younger children just to help bring them up for their education purposes. So I'm running this class, but I'm also running this, and I was feeling really overwhelmed. I was feeling really overwhelmed, and the one day I came back, and one of the children is like, "Oh, are we gonna do class now?" And I said to him, I'm sorry, I can't do it today again." Because, and it was like, "No, don't worry. I know you have more important things to do." And I died. I just died. In trying to do what I saw as important and beneficial for the children, I'd actually forgotten the purpose of me being there, which was the children. And I vowed from that day that no matter what happens, um, always remember the why and feed the why. Sometimes you have to let other things go. You balance everything as much as possible, but you're also one person. Don't forget the why. Don't forget the reason you are. Don't get so busy doing things that you forget the reason you are doing those things. And I'd gotten so lost and missed the point. And I was so grateful to him. He has no idea. I mean, he was 8 years old, and I believe we learn from everybody. I believe we learn from everybody. And he taught me one of the most important, if not the most important lessons that I've learned in life.
Thank you so much, Amiel, for the response. Um, on the aspect of abuse and exploitation, I know that dealing with that can be very, very disheartening. So what advice do you have for our listeners who may feel discouraged or confused when encountering such situations, potentially impacting their desire to help?
Whew, that's a difficult one because I think I've experienced that in different ways in at different times with different organizations, where you kind of like are facing, okay, fine, me as a person versus the cause, you know? And I believe that, yeah, it's a difficult one because different times have required me, or I've come up to react differently with each of them. I know I like to see or think of myself as non-confrontational because I like peace. Also, at the same time, I'm very straightforward, as in, if I see something, I like to address it, not as a fight, but as a point of, let's talk about it. And if you believe that you are there for a reason, if what you believe is that is the purpose that you are there, is for that reason, for that purpose, then sometimes that purpose does get tested, and you decide how you want to pass that. It's very important to look after your well-being. It's very important to look after yourself. So you need to love yourself, of course, in order to be able to give off love and love others. And that means that you need to stop and say, is this the price that I'm willing to pay? And if it is, how far do I take it? As far as possible, I always say, stand up for what is right, stand up for what is true, stand up regardless of what may happen. And by that regardless, of course, we all have a line where it's like, okay, fine, I've come to the regardless now, that's it. I need to get out for whatever reason, you know. But as far as possible, as much as you can do it, because our purpose in working as humanitarians is to fight for the cause of those who do not have a voice, or of those who do have a voice but it's unheard. Um, and so that's part of the deal. Fight for it. Fight for it. It's discouraging, and you think, we in environment we shouldn't be having to. But the fact that you are there at that time facing it means that you are the person for it as much as you can and as far as you can. But when you also feel like you cannot anymore, you've come to the very end, if there's nothing more for you to draw on, please pull back. Please pull back and look after yourself, because if you cannot give from an empty plate. Look at the truth, look it straight in the eye, be able to look at the good. Remember the good, always remember the good, but also be able to look at the ugly, know it for what it is, and then make a decision based on reality, on the facts of this is the good, this is the bad, but this is my purpose. Is it worth it at this point? And I hope that it's worth it, because you're there for a reason, you're there for a time. And oh, please, like you were saying, I'm wise. There are times I failed at this myself. So many times where I was like, oh no, this is not for me. I cannot. I give up. I can't. I quit. I quit. I quit. But then every time I've had to go back and be like, and there were times where I was like, actually, I can live with this decision. It was the right decision. And sometimes it's been a matter of I look back and be like, I could have made a better decision, and now I have to forgive myself. Which is usually, okay, for me, it's much harder than it is forgiving somebody else. And be like, okay, fine. This is one thing that I failed. I remember it. And if it comes again, I know I will do better. I know I can handle better.
Okay, you're done. I didn't really realize, because I didn't want you to be done. I was I was really, really living in it. Thank you so much. I still stand on what I said. You're very wise and very, 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 very captivating. You know how to pull people. Like when you speak, people just listen. And that's what you've done to me. I forgot for a minute that you were done. So
Thank you.
thank you so much. I'm just really, really excited that you're here. You're very, very, very special. You're one of my favorite people that I admire from afar. In case you don't know, I'm saying it here. I really admire you from afar. So thank you so much for everything you've done for IHF. It's a pleasure to have you
Thank you so
here.
much, Darice. That's
Um,
very kind. Thank you.
okay. God's favor. Do you have a question for Amiel before I proceed?
Um, Hello everyone. Amiel said everything that I needed to know. Every question I already had, he did justice to the topic. I want to thank him for his outputs and for the advice he has given to all of us. Thank you, Amiel.
Thank you so much, God's favor. I appreciate that.
Yes. Over to you, Darius.
Okay. Amiel, your last question is, Carlos mentioned your remarkable ability to listen to others and understand their perspective. So how can me, the volunteers and our listeners cultivate this valuable skill? It's actually really valuable, just like you have.
Whew. Okay, everyone, I'm not a guru, so don't stand on this, but this is what I do. This is my process. Um, Whenever I speak to somebody, I try to focus on them. And I try and empathize, put myself in their position, not from a point of Amiel, because it's easy to put yourself as like, oh, if I was in that person's position, this is what I would do, blah, 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 blah. But to actually try and go where they are as much as you possibly can in order to experience what they're doing or what they're saying or what they're expressing and be able to pull out of it and look at it still um, from an outside point of view. So in order to do that, it means you need to give of yourself completely to the moment, to that time, whether someone is in front of you. So if somebody's speaking to me, I put the phone down and I focus on what they are saying, and I try and ask questions to get more and to get a better understanding. Um, if I'm talking on the phone, it's a little bit more difficult because I'm like, I focus better when I'm looking at somebody. So if I'm talking on the phone, I still try to do the same thing and try and listen first. And listen not just to hear, listen not to respond, but listen, understand. And when you listen to understand, you will find that sometimes you don't have an answer. And you can say, I don't know what to say to that. Or you can say, I don't have an answer for you right now, but can I go back and come back to you? Which I think is more valuable. I have found that a lot of people appreciate that more than trying to just come up with an answer so that you can say you've given an answer and having an answer immediately. Um, we've all been taught and to listen to get an answer. I mean, if you think about it, in your math class, it's like, okay, 3 times 3. What that does, it's very good. It's good for memory. It's a good skill. But I mean, what that kind of thing has done to us is that we've come up learning, and so we can give an answer. But people are not mathematics. People are living beings. And so if you connect from a point of love and try and find that point of love in somebody else, then you're able, just think, how would I want somebody else to respond to me? You would want somebody to get in your shoes, feel you, and then respond to you from their perspective, but having a better understanding of where you are and where you're coming from.
Okay. Thank
I'm
you.
done.
All right. Thank you so much for sharing your insight and experiences with us today. It's been a pleasure. Before I close, Carol wanted, she wants me to read this to you. Um, she actually considers you very highly, so she wrote a piece and asked me to read it here for you to know what she feels about you. So here it goes. When I think of Amiel, I'm struck by his wonderfully human nature. He approaches discussion with honesty, avoiding accusations and name calling. Instead, he pauses, listens, and speaks from a place of understanding. I remember our first encounter outside a coffee shop where his unique voice calmly conveyed his concerns. Despite chaos and challenges, Amiel remained a steady presence, listening to everyone's perspectives without jumping to conclusions. He doesn't seek the spotlight or validation from others, but rather stays true to himself. Through all the dramas and challenges, Amiel's authenticity and kindness shines through, teaching valuable lessons in being true to oneself. Thank you so much, Amiel.
Oh, you're making me emotional now. Oh, thank you so much. And Carol is someone I admire a lot. And those words coming from her mean so much to me. They mean so much. Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome. Before we wrap it up, do you have anything to say to our listeners? I know that you've given them so much. It's a lot, but maybe like a little sentence, just something for them to keep by their bedside before they sleep tonight.
Um, so before everything, we are all human. If we remember that, before everything, before color, gender, um, continents, culture, religion, before everything, we are all human. And if we remember that, it changes the way we interact, it changes the way we are with each other. Everything that, all those other things are important because they inform how you deal and how you interact and how, but before everything else, we are all human. The child, the artist, it doesn't matter. We are all human. And if you respect human life, you will respect everybody regardless. And it's not about agreement. It's not about going along. No, it's just respect that human and love that human as a human, first and foremost. And everything else after that will come from a point of love.
Okay. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. It's been incredibly enlightening chatting with you. I would say I've had like 4 or 5 people here. I would say you're one of my favorites. So I would I would go over this and listen over again because I would always say this is the third time. You are very wise. So thank you so much, Emil, for gracing our podcast with your presence. We are truly blessed. May God bless you for us. Thank you so much. And to our listeners, I hope that you learned something. I hope that it's whether a sentence or a word, at least something should stand out for you with this podcast. Remember that kindness is a superpower, so don't stop passing it on. Thank you so much for listening, and thank you for sticking in. Until next time, take care and keep passing it on. My name is Darice. See you next time. Bye.